Listen, not to me, not to the room you're in, but to that small, trembling place inside you, the one you keep avoiding. Let me ask you something, a question you've run from for years. A question so simple it feels dangerous. What if the thing that kept you alive is the same thing that kept you suffering? You feel it, don't you? That small tightening in your chest, that tiny pull behind your ribs, the quiet recognition that someone has finally spoken the truth you never dare to name. Hope, such a gentle word, such a beautiful word, such a comforting word. And yet, why does it hurt? Why does it feel like a blade wrapped in silk? You've built your life around it, clung to it, fed it, protected it like a fragile flame in a storm. You told yourself it was your compass, your light, your reason to endure, your reason to keep moving when everything around you fell apart. But tell me, and be honest for the first time in years, how many nights did hope keep you awake? Not because it gave you a future, but because it refused to let you accept the present. How many chapters of your life stretched into endless waiting rooms, where nothing happened except the slow decay of your own patience? Hope whispers, hold on, something better is coming, but it never tells you when, or how, or whether it was ever real. And so you wait, and wait, and wait. Your life becomes an unfinished sentence, a door you never open, a breath you never release. Because you believed with such devotion, it almost breaks my heart, that someday, somehow, the story would turn in your favor. But what if the story never needed to? What if the miracle you kept yearning for was only a shadow created by your refusal to stand in the light of what is? You see, I'm not here to take hope away from you. No, I'm here to uncover the truth hidden beneath it. The truth you already sense. The truth you've always sensed. Hope did not save you. Hope extended your suffering. And you knew it. Every time you begged the universe for just one more sign. Every time you convinced yourself that tomorrow would be different. Every time you held on to a person, a dream, a version of yourself that had long stopped holding on to you. You felt it. That faint tremor, that quiet doubt, that impossible question rising like smoke. What if hope is the reason I cannot let go? And now, here you are, breathing, listening, suspended between the life you imagined and the life you inhabit. You thought you were lost, but no. You are standing at the threshold of something deeper, something quieter, something truer. A realization you have avoided for so long that it feels like waking up in a stranger's body. Let us step into it together, slowly, softly, because the truth is not here to punish you. It is here to free you from the story that hope trapped you inside. You didn't notice when it began. Most people don't. Hope enters quietly, disguised as comfort, disguised as courage, disguised as something noble, even holy. You were young when you first tasted it. A sweetness in the mouth, a soft glow in the chest, a promise humming in the distance, like the echo of a future calling your name. And who wouldn't want that? A world where things will someday feel right, where pain will someday make sense, where loneliness will someday be replaced by warmth. But hope has a darker nature, one you didn't see because you were too busy surviving. Hope is not a light. Hope is a projection, a shimmering distortion on the wall of your mind. And projections, by their nature, require distance, a gap, an absence, something missing. Something withheld, something postponed. Hope thrives on the belief that life is not yet enough, and so it traps you in a strange paradox. To keep hope alive, your suffering must continue. You didn't know this then, but life did. Life has always known. And so the cycle began, the thirst. It starts as a gentle hunger, a longing, a reaching toward the future, as though it contains a reservoir of meaning the present refuses to offer. You wake each day with an unspoken sentence lingering beneath your breath. Maybe today will be different. Maybe they will finally love you. Maybe the world will finally see you. Maybe the timing will finally be right. Maybe the version of you that only exists in your imagination will finally appear. The thirst feels innocent, harmless, human. But thirst shapes your vision. It makes you see mirages in the desert of your daily life. A message becomes a sign. A coincidence becomes destiny. A delay becomes a test. Every silence becomes a doorway waiting to open. You thought you wanted freedom. What you wanted was control. Control over uncertainty. Control over outcomes. Control over a future that frightened you with how little you could grasp it. Hope gave you the illusion of control. It told you, hold on a little longer, you're almost there. But there kept moving, and you kept chasing it, breathless, thirsty, exhausted, still believing the oasis was just beyond the next June, still believing the desert was temporary, still believing your suffering was a necessary tax for a future reward. You thought you were living, you were only running. Running toward a horizon that always stayed the same distance away. The waiting. Waiting became your religion. Not because you were patient, but because hope convinced you that the present was unworthy of your full attention. You lived in the in-between, in the almost, in the someday. Your life became a hallway, a transition, a pause button pressed so gently you didn't hear the click. You stopped noticing the details around you, the faces of strangers, the changing colors of morning light, the quiet hum of your own intuition, all drowned beneath one repeated thought. When the future arrives, I will finally be whole. But here is the cruel truth, the truth you learned too late. Hope teaches you to postpone your own existence. You traded presence for possibility, reality for fantasy, awareness for anticipation, and the world, indifferent as always, continued without you. Years passed like clouds drifting across a sky you forgot to look at. People you loved moved on while you waited for the version of them that lived in your hope. Opportunities wilted while you rehearsed a life that never began. Waiting became who you were, silent, suspended, somewhere between breathing and dreaming. But there comes a moment, perhaps you remember it, when the mirror finally cracks, when something small, trivial even, exposes the truth you refuse to see. A text never returned, a plan that falls apart, a dream that no longer fits the shape of your life, a realization that you've changed, but your hope has not. You stand before the mirror of your own reflection, and for the first time, the person looking back at you seems tired. Not tired from effort, not tired from striving, tired from hoping, tired from carrying a future that never agreed to arrive, tired from believing in promises that were never spoken aloud, tired from mistaking desire for destiny, tired from bending your life around possibilities that never solidified into reality. Hope did not lift you, hope hollowed you, and when you look into the mirror, you don't see potential, you see absence. The absence of all the days you lost waiting. The absence of the self you abandoned in the name of a better tomorrow. The absence of acceptance. Acceptance, the one thing hope cannot coexist with. Because the moment you accept life as it is, hope dissolves. And with it, the illusions you built entire worlds around. This is why you clung so tightly. Not because hope was beautiful, but because you feared what would happen when it left. Hope does not leave quietly. It shatters. It collapses. It catches fire. It burns through the stories you clung to and leaves behind a darkness so absolute it feels like betrayal. The storm arrives without warning. One day, you still believe. The next, the world becomes unbearably silent. No more signs. No more maybes. No more internal negotiations with fate. Just stillness. Heavy. Unforgiving. You tell yourself you're broken, that something essential inside you has died, that without hope you have no compass, no direction, no meaning. But this isn't true. Something has died, but it is not you. It is the illusion that life owes you a shape it never promised. It is the fantasy of a future that would erase your present. It is the belief that waiting is the same as living. Hope doesn't just extend suffering. Hope resists reality. And when reality finally arrives, like a storm breaking over the desert, you have no shelter. Only the ruins of the expectations you once worshipped. You crumble, you fall, you sink inside yourself. But this collapse is sacred. It is the unraveling required for awakening, because only in the absence of illusion can truth emerge. The law beneath the pain. Every human being clings to hope, not because they are foolish, but because they are afraid. Afraid that without a dream of better, their suffering will become unbearable. Afraid that acceptance means giving up. Afraid that surrender means failure. Afraid that they will be asked to face themselves. Not the version created by hope, but the quiet, raw, unadorned self beneath it. But here is the law beneath the pain. Hope is addictive because it delays grief. As long as you hope, you do not have to mourn the life you didn't have, the person who didn't choose you, the dreams that didn't bloom, the childhood that never healed, the future that never formed. Hope lets you postpone the funeral, and you mistook that postponement for strength. But every delay accumulated like dust on the shelves of your inner world, a thick, heavy weight, a quiet suffocation. You carried the dead with you because hope promised they weren't dead, and yet, one by one, they were. Hope is cruel because it keeps wounds open under the guise of keeping possibilities alive. But after the storm, something unexpected happens. Something small, something subtle. You begin to notice your breath again. Not the breath of anticipation, not the breath of waiting, just breath, existing for its own sake. You begin to notice the world around you, a slant of afternoon light against the wall, the low hum of distant traffic, the quiet warmth of your own hands. These were always there. You simply never saw them. You were too busy, staring at a horizon that refused to come closer. You realized something devastating and liberating. Reality was never the enemy. It was the neglected companion. Hope kept pulling you into tomorrow. But life has always been here, waiting for you, waiting with a patience you never extended to yourself. You thought you were abandoned. You were simply absent. And when you finally return, fragmented, bruised, disoriented, life does not punish you. It simply offers itself again, without fanfare, without reward, without the drama of destiny, just presence, quiet, steady, unconditional. Now you see the whole cycle, don't you? The thirst, the waiting, the mirror, the storm, the returning. A loop repeated across years, across dreams, across relationships, across every moment you believed better lived somewhere ahead of you. Hope is not evil, but hope is deceptive. It promises without power. It comforts without truth. It extends your suffering by convincing you that suffering has meaning only if the future redeems it. But suffering does not need redemption. It needs recognition. And when you recognize the pattern, not with anger, but with clarity, something loosens inside you. You realize that hope did not ruin your life. Your attachment to what hope represented did. The belief that you could not live without what you desired. The belief that the universe owed you alignment. The belief that possibility was more valuable than presence. Hope was merely the mask. The real force beneath it was fear. Fear of letting go. Fear of emptiness. Fear of silence. Because silence is where truth waits. And truth does not negotiate. Truth does not bend. Truth does not promise. Truth simply is. And now, for the first time, you are beginning to sense it. Not as an idea, not as a philosophy, but as a presence. Quiet, steady, unmoving. A presence that has always been here, beneath the noise of your hoping. A presence that feels strangely familiar. A presence that feels like you. Now, slow down. Yes, even here, even now. Feel the weight behind your ribs. That quiet ache stretching across your chest. It is not pain, not anymore. It is space, new, unfamiliar space. Opening where hope once lived. Breathe into it, gently, as though you are touching something sacred. Because you are, this is the beginning of descent. Not downward, the way the world imagines it, but inward, toward the center, toward the place where the mind cannot lie to itself. For years, you built your life around a horizon that never arrived. Now, for the first time, your eyes begin to adjust to the landscape of what is. Let your thoughts slow. Let the dust settle. Let the echo of your old beliefs fade into the background. Something else is emerging. Something quiet. Something honest. Do not rush it. Truth does not bloom under pressure. It unfolds when everything unnecessary has fallen away. And that is what is happening now. Listen, not to the words, not to the meaning, but to the silence between them. That silence is the doorway. You've been avoiding it your entire life. You filled it with hope, with dreams, with fantasies of perfect tomorrows, with versions of yourself that were always just slightly out of reach. Silence frightened you because it held no promise, no anticipation, no sense of almost. Silence was the one place where you could not hide from yourself. But now, as you enter it, as you let its cool breath settle over you, you begin to realize something startling. Silence was never empty. It was simply waiting for you to stop running. The mind resists this at first. It reaches for distractions. It reaches for stories. It reaches for the familiar ache of hope. Because hope, for all its cruelty, was something you understood. A rhythm your heart grew accustomed to. A hunger you knew how to carry. But notice what is happening. Notice the shift. The hunger is fading. The rhythm is slowing. The running is losing meaning. You are descending into the one thing hope feared you would touch. Acceptance. Acceptance is not a thought. It is not a decision. It is not an idea you force into place. Acceptance is what remains when resistance falls silent. And resistance falls silent only when you have exhausted every illusion, every story, every future, every desperate attempt to save what never truly existed. Right now, you are entering that silence, a kind of inner twilight. A dimly lit room where shapes soften and edges blur. A space where your past identities begin to dissolve like dust drifting in a shaft of afternoon light. Let yourself sink, not into thought, into awareness. Awareness does not ask questions. It does not bargain. It does not plead with the future. It does not demand that life make sense. Awareness simply notices the rise of breath, the fall of breath, the weight of your hands, the faint tremble beneath your ribs, the mind struggling softly against its own unraveling. You are watching yourself from within. This is descent. Feel the shift. The world around you grows distant, not gone, just no longer the center of your attention. Your desires loosen their grip, not because you're forcing them to let go, but because you are beginning to see them for what they truly are. Echoes. Echoes of the person hope needed you to be. Echoes of the future you believed would redeem your suffering. Echoes of your younger self, reaching for meaning in the only way they knew how. These echoes do not disappear. They simply lose authority, and in their place, something ancient arises. Something quieter than thought. Something older than desire. A presence. Your presence. Not the imagined self. Not the hoped-for self. The witnessing self. You have been searching for this presence your whole life, though you never recognized it, because it does not speak in the language of hope. It speaks in the language of stillness. Listen again. That faint vibration beneath everything you feel. That subtle awareness of simply being here. This is the self that remains when illusions fall away. Let everything soften. Let the mental images blur. The future you chased. The endings you feared. The outcomes you try to control. Let them dissolve like chalk in the rain. You no longer need them. They were the scaffolding of a self built on expectation. Now the scaffolding is falling, and beneath it you find something solid. You find the ground of your own awareness. A ground that does not move, does not wait, does not hope. It simply is. And in touching it, you begin to realize the truth that hope always obscured. You were never lacking. You were distracted. Distracted by the brightness of imagined futures, by the glow of what could be, by the shimmering mirage of almost. But now, the mirage fades. The desert air settles. The horizon stops vibrating with promises. And you see the sand beneath your feet. Real, certain, present. The present no longer feels like a punishment. It feels like a return. As you descend deeper, your mind reaches a kind of threshold, the place where stories lose their meaning. Hope was a story. Desire was a story. Identity was a story. And stories require movement. They require direction. They require tension. But awareness has no direction. Awareness has no tension. It is a still pool, reflective, unmoving, unaffected by the winds of thought passing above it. You can almost feel it now, the way the mind attempts one last grasp toward hope, one last attempt to resurrect the old cycle. But it is weak. It dissolves almost instantly. Your mind is quieting, not because you forced it to be silent, but because it finally sees that there is nowhere left to run, nowhere left to project, nowhere left to hope. Only this moment, only this breath, only this awareness. And in that awareness, something extraordinary begins to happen. Your suffering loosens its identity, not because it disappears, but because it is no longer your suffering. It is simply an experience passing through a field of consciousness, like wind through trees, like light across water, like dust drifting in a forgotten attic. You are no longer the one trapped inside the storm. You are the sky that holds the storm. Every descent feels like dying, because something inside you is dying. The future self, the ideal self, the imagined life that hovered above you like a fragile constellation. When they die, you feel the emptiness, a hollowing, a quiet age. Do not fear it. This emptiness is not a void. It is a clearing, a space where awareness can finally breathe without suffocation, a space where the noise of craving can no longer echo, a space where you can finally rest. For the first time in your life, you are not leaning forward, not reaching, not hoping. You are simply here. And here is not the prison you once believed. It is the sanctuary you never knew how to enter. This is the descent, not into darkness, but into truth. Not into despair, but into presence. Not into death, but into freedom. A freedom that does not depend on the future. A freedom that does not require redemption. A freedom that does not need hope to survive. This freedom was always here, but hope kept you facing outward. When everything you needed lived inward, now you have turned toward it, gently, quietly, without resistance. And it welcomes you, not with fireworks, not with revelations, not with triumph, but with silence. Silence so deep, it feels like an ocean beneath your thoughts. Silence so steady, it feels like a hand resting on your heart. Silence so familiar, it feels like home. You are descending into yourself. And for the first time, you are not afraid. There comes a moment, so subtle, you almost miss it, when you realize the descent has ended. Not because you have reached the bottom, but because there is no bottom. Only depth, only awareness, only the stillness that has been waiting beneath your searching. You sit inside this silence now, and something strange begins to happen. You do not crave. You do not anticipate. You do not project yourself into tomorrow. What once felt like emptiness now feels like spaciousness. Like a room with all the furniture removed, sunlight touching a bare floor, the air finally able to move freely. For the first time, you are not weighed down by expectation. Your life is no longer a negotiation. There is no imagined future tugging at your sleeve, whispering about what you should be, what you should have, what you should become. The chain is broken, not snapped in violence, not shattered in triumph, simply released. It falls away like an old coat shrugging off your shoulders. You feel lighter, unreasonably lighter, as though gravity itself has loosened its hold on you. You look around, not with the eyes of hope, but with the eyes of awareness, and everything appears different. Not new, just real. Reality is no longer the enemy you avoided. Reality is no longer the disappointing understudy of the future you imagined. Reality is simply here, and you are finally here with it. You begin to sense the truth beneath all truths. The future was never promised. The past was never stable. Hope was never safety. Hope was only resistance wearing the mask of faith. But awareness. Awareness does not require promises. It does not rewrite the past. It does not demand that life comfort you. Awareness accepts. Awareness allows. Awareness sees without insisting that the moment be different. And in that acceptance, you feel something deeper than peace. Something quieter, purer, more intimate. A softening, a loosening, a quiet permission to exist exactly as you are. You no longer feel the urge to argue with life. You no longer shrink from discomfort. You no longer clutch at possibilities, the way a drowning person clutches at oxygen. You simply breathe. And breathing is enough. Existence is enough. Presence is enough. Not because the world has changed, but because you have stopped fighting it. You have stopped fighting yourself. Hope once felt like warmth. Now awareness feels like honesty. A deeper warmth. A steadier warmth. A warmth without conditions. The warmth of being awake. Hope carried tension. A hidden desperation. The quiet ache of believing that fulfillment was elsewhere. Awareness carries no ache. It does not reach. It does not lean forward. It simply remains. Unmoved. Unafraid. Unattached. Like a candle in a still room. The flame does not struggle. It does not flicker in anxiety. It simply burns, not to illuminate the future, but to illuminate the present. This is what your awareness has become. A flame without fear. Let the world be what it is. Not because you are giving up, not because you're resigned, not because you've lost your dreams, but because the inner battle is over. You finally see the truth. You were not suffering because life withheld what you needed. You were suffering because you refused to stop reaching. You believed that the next moment would save you. You believed that tomorrow would redeem today. You believed that hope was the antidote to suffering. But hope was suffering extended across time. Hope stretched your pain like a thin thread from one day to the next, keeping you suspended in a perpetual state of almost. Almost healed, almost chosen, almost fulfilled, almost alive. But look at you now, fully here, fully present, fully awake. The thread has snapped, and instead of falling, you have landed in yourself. Feel the stillness settling inside you, not the stillness of stagnation, but the stillness of acceptance. A stillness vast enough to hold every emotion, a stillness patient enough to let life unfold without your intervention, a stillness generous enough to embrace reality exactly as it arrives. You are no longer bracing for impact. You are no longer waiting for the universe to deliver something better. You are no longer bargaining with fate. You are simply seeing. For the first time, you are seeing without distortion, without projection, without hope's trembling hand pulling the strings of your imagination. Awareness feels like standing at the edge of a quiet lake at twilight. The surface is calm, the air is cool, the water reflects everything without effort. This is your mind now, a reflective surface, unburdened, unstrained, unafraid. You no longer need the future to rescue you. There is nothing to rescue. You were never drowning. You were only reaching for a horizon that did not exist. You feel something inside you unclench. The part of you that once obsessed dissolves. The part of you that once begged softens. The part of you that once feared silence now rests within it. And that is the final liberation. You no longer run from silence. You welcome it. You sit beside it like an old friend. You let it guide you. You let it breathe through you. You discover that silence is not a void. It is a presence, a companion, a teacher. Silence does not demand. Silence does not promise. Silence does not hope. Silence reveals. It reveals what life looks like when you are no longer insisting that it be different. It reveals what you look like without the illusions you once clung to. It reveals the truth that was waiting beneath all your suffering. Peace does not come from hoping for a better moment. Peace comes from fully inhabiting this one. And so you rest, not because everything is perfect, not because suffering has vanished, not because you've transcended the human condition. You rest because you have stopped arguing with reality. You rest because you have stopped postponing your own existence. You rest because you have stopped carrying the burden of hope. You are no longer reaching. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer running. You are simply awake. And awareness is enough. It has always been enough. It will always be enough. Then, in the gentlest corner of your mind, you hear the paradox whisper itself into existence. Soft, inevitable, luminous. When you stop seeking peace, it finds you.